Season 2, Episode 1 of Eat This, Drink That. We are with, I'm going to say Steve first. We are with expert falconer, Steve Greer, and wine expert as well on the side. And we have food expert, TV host Ali Khan, and I'm Ryan on the producing. And let's get kicked off with this season. Steve, what is your drink that for today? Let us know about something to drink.
Yeah, we got a whole new format. So we're going to start talking about what to drink, and Ali's going to come in behind with all kinds of ideas for food pairings. So
I've got ideas. I've got big ideas.
So we're right in that threshold where it's going to start getting cold, but it's still pretty warm in a lot of places, especially where you guys are in Austin and LA. We're going to go to Spain, and we're going to focus on a few whites, mainly because no one ever thinks about Spanish whites. Most people do not think about Spanish whites. One of them has grown in popularity a little bit. We're going to go to Rías Baixas for Albariño, Rueda for the grape Verdejo, and then I have a really special wine that I usually buy whenever it is finally released. It's a Rioja Blanco, which is a great Vieira. But this is a weird, so we have to have one totally weird thing. It's actually
I live for the weird. If there's one thing about Eat This, Drink That is, I think, I feel like coming away from it, drink different has been like kind of the secret motto. But now I'm like, let's get weird. Yeah. Season 2, we're getting weird. I'm into the weird.
So I'm not even.
Steve, were you listing the regions? Sorry, were you listing the region and then saying what the style was afterwards? Because it's
grape.
Fast.
That's the grape. So let's dive in. I'm going to grab the wines. So for the podcasters, I'm going to tell you what the wine is, but you can also see the bottle on YouTube. So this is from Rías Baixas. So that is a oceanside portion of Spain. So it sits right above Portugal. Rías Baixas means lower estuaries, basically. So it's where the sea and the rivers all meet. There's 5 rivers that are pumping out through this area. So it's a totally different climate. Can be a little humid. The soils vary, but the grape that grows there is called Albariño. And
that's good stuff.
Yes.
I heard of that one.
I think you had one back a couple months ago when we were doing Indian food and we did a pairing with Albariño. Albariño is unique because of the rich fruit that you get. So pear, it still has some green apple, but more rich pear fruit. But it has very high acidity. So it balances it out. It also usually will have a little bit more alcohol. So there's a texture to the wine. So this is 14.5%. This is from a winery called Valmenor. It is 100% Albariño. It's from one of the river areas called O Rosal. So O and then Rosal. There's 5 very distinct regions within Rías Baixas. This happens to be the lowest, the most southern. It's interesting. On the other side of the border to Portugal, it's where Vinho Verde is produced. So
I've had that stuff.
Yeah. And Vinho Verde used to be,
hipster. Yes, that was going around LA for a couple years.
Vinho Verde blew up 5-6 years
That's
ago.
an LA wine, I feel like, because you can sip on it. Yeah. It kind of looks like it's in a Sprite bottle.
Yes.
It's green. It's got a little bit of fizz. It's like day drinking wine.
And it's lower alcohol.
You can pretend like you don't want to get hammered, but you still do.
You're not. You're like, you're not getting hammered. Yeah. You're like, I'm good all day. I'm like, when'd you get to this party? 10 a.m.? It's like 6 p.m.
That's the difference.
It says Vinho Verde.
That's the difference. In Rías Baixas, there's a little more alcohol than Vinho Verde. Vinho Verde sometimes is almost bottled while the fermentation is still right at the end of completion. So there's a slight effervescence on the palate, little
That's why it's fizzy, huh?
Yeah. Okay. But Albariño is a more serious wine than Vinho Verde. You get this rich textured fruit, but the lift, everything stays very fresh. Acid in a wine keeps things very fresh and lifted, and also palate cleansing, so it'll stand up to a range of foods. So that's Rias Pachas. That's Albariño.
And wait, I gotta ask, what's this bottle setting me back? Because when I'm looking at a wine, I want to know how much is.
So this,
the
I
bottle
think, was 15. This was 15.
Fair enough.
Now, I also tried to find wines that you guys are all going to be able to find across the country. This one might be a little more difficult. This is actually from Casella Imports out of Virginia, out of DC. He's an MS. He's a master somm that has his own company. I didn't even realize it was Casella when I bought it, but a friend of mine actually works for Casella, so I'm like, oh, this was bonus.
Wait, I gotta ask, because I've been frankly hyping you up as a somm. You're a somm, right? You're a somm.
I have sommed in a restaurant. I have my level 1 quartermaster sommeliers, but I left the court a long time ago.
You're a quarter somm.
So
that's what I was getting at.
But I have my WSET diploma, which I think way outranks most of the quartermaster sommeliers. That's 2 years of constant exams and papers, and you still have to do 12 wines blind and write 5 essays, all within 3 hours.
I'm so glad you asked this, Ali, because I was curious to know this as well. Because
you said master somm.
Yeah.
How far are you off from a master somm?
So I don't do the court anymore. So there's basically three different study groups. You have the quartermaster sommeliers, the one that have been going through all the controversy lately. And then you have the WSET, which is the Wine and Spirits Education Trust out of London, is almost like the AAA going into Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball,
great analogy,
is the Master of Wine. So that's, in my opinion, Master of Wine is the number one. So Master of Wine is all the people that write all the books. So Jancis Robinson is probably the most favorite. This is the Oxford Companion to Wine.
I love how he pulls all of this stuff. This was a tangent, and he's still, really?
You're a quarter somm. He's like, let me tell you about quarter somms.
Steve, here's what we got. Steve's AAA, and the majors, there's probably a team, let's call it, Marlins are like, you know what, let's call this guy up. You know what I mean? It's still baseball, you know what I mean? So good to know. All right.
I'm debating.
I'm not going to get too far off. I want to get into the next one. Hopefully it's weird.
If it wasn't...
I'm not overselling it. I just want to make sure I'm not overselling it.
So I'm close to a big decision. I might apply for the Master of Wine program. It's a full commitment. You're looking at 5 years of studying, exams, and travel. But there's only 300 and something in the world that have ever passed the MW exam. LA, by the way, LA has 3. I think it's 3. There's, I know 2 for sure.
You mentioned travel, though. That makes sense, though, because you actually have to go. You want to go to the places, see the terroir, if you will.
So I've been to most of the regions in France. I've been to the Mosel in Germany. I've done most of central to northern Italy outside of Friuli. But I haven't done anything in the southern hemisphere. Nothing.
Okay.
And funny enough,
I was going to bring it up, but I didn't want to embarrass you.
You haven't been to South Africa, Steve?
No. South Africa, Argentina.
How dare you?
Australia.
How dare you not go to Madagascar to learn more about Riesling?
Yes. But Spain, funny enough, I was supposed to go to Spain on a trip with an importer when I took the job that I'm basically currently in. So I was this close to a full Spanish trip. So let's go to wine number 2.
Yes.
I'm not as exciting as the wine.
Albariño.
So Rias Pachas, Albariño, number 1. You will be able to find versions of this other wineries. Martin Codex, Bergens, Albariño. These are going to be at most of your wine shops and maybe even a couple of the higher end grocery stores. But let's go here
Pavilion.
because I chose this for two reasons. One, Jorge Ordonez is the reason why Spanish wine really blew up early 2000s. So he was an
Because
importer.
his name is awesome.
Yeah,
that's a great
name.
Like, can we just acknowledge that?
So
that's a great
this
name.
winery is actually, you'll be able to find this wine everywhere.
What's the name?
So
Jorge.
it is from the winery Bodega Ordonez. So he now has his own winery in Rueda, which is a very special place, and I'll tell you why, because I'll tell you in a second. I'm assuming this has got to be some sort of family name. Nacia is the name of the wine, but it is Rueda. The reason I chose this is old vines. Well, you can find this everywhere. It's old vines. It's also
okay. I gotta stop because you said it before. What does that mean, old vines?
So that means usually some of the more commercial wineries are going to start ripping out the vines around 15 to 20 years of age, so it produces more fruit. As it ages, the fruit becomes more concentrated, but it produces a lot less.
Oh,
so Rueda, old vine Rueda is probably a little more common than, say, old vine Cabernet in Napa Valley or Sonoma.
The old vine is like saying small batch.
Could be. Yes, a little.
I'm up quarter som, actually. Yeah. I didn't want to say
But the grape is a grape called Verdejo. And one of the reasons why I think this place is pretty special, and it butts up against a couple other very special places in the red wine world. You're sitting in basically a high desert. So it's higher elevation. You get really hot days, but you also get very cold nights. So you get this sunshine and all this rich fruit going on, but at night the temperature drops. And that drop in temperature allows the grape to reset itself and maintain acidity. So just like the Albariño, where you have this rich textured fruit with a little higher alcohol, you also have bright acidity. Same thing here. But Verdejo, the grape itself, this will have more rich texture because of the way they make the wine. They actually put it in barrel and they stir it on the lees and they bring a lot of texture to it. But if this was a stainless steel fermented bright Verdejo, it would be herbaceous and rich fruit. So a really fun combination that you don't normally get in warmer climates where it's just fruit.
Steve, I'm looking up Verdejo, and it says it grows between Madrid and Galicia, but it says it has DO status. Do you know what DO status?
Yes. So protected denomination of origin. Okay. So I always like to equate this to I just used the phrase with Ali the other day. Intellectual property.
I see. Yeah. Is it like champagne?
This is intellectual property. So the best examples started in France because everything is protected under AOC. Even the cheeses are protected in France. Tequila, mezcal, all the agave spirits are protected under PDO. And most famous wine regions are protected under PDO. Champagne, you can't make champagne anywhere outside of the Champagne region.
Sparkling
You can't make Chateauneuf de Pape outside of Chateauneuf de Pape, right by Avignon in southern Rhone. You can't make Rueda anywhere else. Rueda is a DO. The cool part about this is great. So you guys all know Porto, so port in Portugal. Right. There is a river, the Duero River, runs all the way from, let's call it eastern central Spain. That river, I think it's 400 miles. It's the main river. Runs all the way through northern Spain into Porto. This little area northwest of Madrid has Ribera del Duero, the banks of the Duero.
Nice.
It has Toro, which is insane because of the vines themselves grow straight on the ground. They're little bush vines. The grapes are tiny. They change how they're growing. They're thicker skins. Still Tempranillo, same as Rioja, same as Ribera del Duero. Then you have Rueda, and these are also bush trained. They're really small. They grow close to the ground, so they can keep the heat that absorbed in the rocks at night when the temperature drops. The yields are lower. These are rich wines with bright acidity, very unique. Another region, Argentina, has that same sort of temperature shift, high desert, lots of sunshine. The grapes grow differently. The UV light affects them, so they grow thicker skins. So all that means you don't have to extract as much to get that texture. So Rueda, you're going into rich pear fruit, and there's a slight herbaceousness on the back end. This really gives a lot of possibilities in food pairings.
Steve, are we having these? Are we having these cold? Are these being treated
like
any other white wine? It's cold.
Call these 50 to 55 degrees. Same temperature as like a Chardonnay.
Okay.
I also, unless you're drinking Vino Verde and some other bright, crisp whites, Sauvignon Blanc, I like them a little warmer. But you have to remember, room temperature isn't cellar temperature. So, your house, my house is probably 75 degrees right now. It's warm outside. I don't have AC on. So you can't just leave them sitting on the counter.
Temperature doesn't get discussed as much. There's a thing with food, even with food or wine. Like if you have it at the wrong temperature, it's not correct. And
and it changes your perception of the fruit, the alcohol, the acid. Everything will change depending on the temperature. Yeah. That's a good point. So your refrigerator is normally 40 degrees. So you don't just throw Albariño in the fridge and then just pop it out and start pouring and drinking. Leave it sit out for a little bit. Let it come up to a little temperature. Unless you have a wine fridge. All my fridges are set at 55 degrees.
I thought you were going to say all my fridges are wine fridges.
Steve's fridge in his kitchen is just 3 wine fridges stacked on each other.
Yeah, I know. Like the food's all spoiled.
Yes. I don't have food in my refrigerator.
He only has olives and cheese.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I know. It is. It's basically all just like charcuterie.
Yeah. I do have a lot of charcuterie in my fridge.
It's almonds.
The last wine.
Nuggets of
and you can tell the difference right away, and I'll tell you why. See the color difference between these two wines?
Yes.
So for the podcast listeners, the new one I'm going to talk about is a rich golden color. The Rueda, the Old Vine Verdejo, is a little more pale. So this is a special wine. It only releases once a year. It's usually gone. I'm lucky in Denver. Not everybody knows about it, so it sits on the shelf.
It's so yellow. It's so yellow. It makes me think that it's pee.
This is Rioja Blanco from the famous Lopez de Heredia. So that vineyard or that winery in Rioja has been around since 1913 or 1915. This is the Viura grape with a little bit of Malvasia.
Malvasia.
Yeah, and it sits in barrel for 6 years. It's only racked twice. So current release, well, this might be 1 year old. Current release is 2009. This is 2008. That is current release. These are 2019. And I think they're both 2019.
How did these guys wait that long to drink this?
This actually probably just is a year old, so that's 2018. Some rosés from Provence are 2020 right now. So this is 12 years older than a current release from Provence. It's 2008. This changes.
So, I gotta ask this. Yeah. This is just going to be. I'm no longer quarter somm. Now I'm back to regular basics. Why is it back to basics? Maybe they told me a long time ago it was time for me to get back to basics. Why is it that red wine, you see red wine and it's old, and you see white wine at the store and it's freaking, like everything
you
else.
read my mind, Ali. I was going to ask that too.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends on the grape, the region, how it's made, the laws. Some laws require you to keep a red wine in the barrel for 2 years after harvest. So it has to age in the barrel. And then you bottle, and then it has to sit in bottle for a year before they even release it. I think this sits in bottle at the cellar. Well, let's think. I bought this 2020. 6 years in barrel so that's 2014. It sat at the cellar probably for another 2 years, or 4 years.
I don't think I've ever heard of aging white wine for some reason. I feel like it's always a red
white
thing.
Well, you can go into Chablis, and so
love the fridges. The fridges are
so this is a 2017 Chablis from Louis Michel that. It's a Premier Cru. I'm not going to open this for another 4 more years.
That's so great.
I'm just going to come over and just be like, oops, oops.
So you can age. White Burgundy is the most well-known aged white wine in the world.
Okay.
But somms, geeks, wine people, wine salesmen, industry people know about Lopez de Heredia. In LA, this wouldn't even hit the shelf. This would come in.
It'd be bought
they would
out.
make some emails and some phone calls and say, "Hey, guess what? Lopez de Heredia Reserva just came in, and it's gone." I'm in Denver. Not everybody knows about it. I walked into a wine shop, and they were just putting up their new releases of Lopez de Heredia, and I'm like, "Can I just buy those? You're not saving those for anybody?" He's like, "No." So I bought this. I bought the Rosado.
That's interesting though. Like you really if one thing I learned, it would almost be to make friends with your local wine store and figure out how to get on the list.
Look how
this is their Rosado from 2010. This is current release. This is from the 2010 vintage.
These colors are crazy. This stuff looks like freaking Thunderbird. Like, you know what I mean? That's like Kool-Aid red.
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean?
Right.
Crazy, intense color. All this other wine you see, except for red wine, it's like you kind of see the light kind of shoot right through. This is like serious color.
Yeah. We could actually spend probably 4 episodes just talking about Spain as a whole. And for today's show, I'm not even talking about Chocolina from the Basque Country. And Godello is another Spanish grape with rich texture. We're not even talking about Godello. I wanted to narrow just so we didn't go down too many rabbit holes and tangents. I wanted to narrow to 2 grapes that you're going to find at most wine shops that you're going to really enjoy and have fun pairing with food. And then I wanted to talk about one uber geeky with this Rioja Blanco. I would decant it. I would let it come up to maybe 55 degrees. And I would literally just eat this with charcuterie and cheeses, funky cheeses. And just really, it almost becomes more about the wine than what you're eating or the pairing. You're enjoying what this wine has become. Yeah. I won't say it's fully sherry, but there's underlying sherry notes. There's still rich fruit. There's still brightness. This wine is super special. You're going to get more tertiary stuff. So tertiary just means bottle aged flavors. So you get more forest floor, mushroomy, but there's a balance. It's not just forest floor mushroom. There's also textured fruit.
Let's tap into what we're pairing with this. Let's tap into the food. Unless Ali had a different thought.
No. I am, and to do it, I just want to get like a quick recap so I know what I'm talking about with which.
Yep.
So let's take it back to round 1, which I believe was an Albariño, right? Valmont. That's right. Reminds me of Harry Potter. That's why I think of that. Valmont. Harry Potter. Albariño. You mentioned apple pear. There's some acidity there, right?
Yeah, these are all dry, by the way. Good point, Ryan. These are all bone dry, so the sugars are fully fermented by the yeast. So the Albariño, rich fruit, pear instead of citrus. So pear, little higher alcohol, but really bright acidity.
Okay, so and you said it's dry, meaning it's not going to be
Well,
sweet.
he said bone dry, which is a great term. What's bone dry?
So that just means there's not going to be any perception of sweetness on the palate.
Interesting.
You're not going to, it's not like drinking a Central Coast Chardonnay from California that actually has residual sugar left in it.
Got it.
So what do people think?
Yeah.
Is seafood a quick go-to with this? I know Spain has a lot of paella. They have the shrimp and the mussels and that sort of thing.
I always like to tell people to think about where it comes from. So this is Rías Baixas, northwest coast of Spain. So this is on the Atlantic. And what is that? The Bay of Biscayne, right at the edge.
Yeah.
You're on the water. So these are all rivers dumping into the ocean.
And so
estuaries. So seafood is the first, immediate example. And then let's go to Rueda. So this is continental. This is inside Spain, northwest of Madrid. But because of the cold nights, the switch in temperature, you still have high acidity. The grape itself provides the herbaceousness, and then you have the rich fruit from all the sunshine. So you get a broad spectrum of flavors, complexity, but refreshing acidity. So your palate is cleaned off and dry.
Ali,
and then
what's your seafood?
Serious wine.
What seafood do you eat naturally?
Okay, so let me figure this out. Now, what's really interesting about this is I have to use my brain and my imagination, but also kind of not make it simple.
What do you like, though? What seafood?
If I'm tasting this wine, and I'm talking about the Albariño, the first one, the Valmont, right? You said it's cold. I mean, you bring in your stuff of like and I love every time he has to talk about like, are we in the ocean? Are we in the desert? Are we on a mountain? Are we in a cave? We're somewhere. I'm like, do I need a sweater, Steve, or should I wear my swim trunks? Tell me what I should wear.
Right. We got to call Patagonia and get our orders in for the tasting. Yeah.
Big wardrobe. We like Patagonia too. Yeah, it's like I have to think about wardrobe. So, and look, sounds like I'm getting my trunks by the water with this stuff, right? Flip flops. You said pear. You said it's really dry. So the first thing I think about, and part of it is because you put the fruit in my head. It's going to be kind of unusual. This probably might catch you in a weird way. But you said seafood, right? You know what I'm thinking about having with this? And it's going to seem weird. Slippery shrimp. You ever have slippery shrimp?
No.
Never heard of it.
Slippery shrimp. Slippery shrimp's like, it's like, okay, so you have sweet and sour shrimp, right? So it's a Chinese food dish. There's a place in downtown LA. I think it might be Phoenix Inn. So kind of an old school Chinese restaurant. One of those places it's not necessarily totally Americanized, but at the same time is not part of the kind of the Chinese restaurant you might hear about that's like, oh, well, this is Sichuan. Right, you know what I mean? They got a big menu. It's kind of broad. So slippery shrimp's just one of those, like, it's one of those, it's a Chinese food that 3 generations of Americans will be like, heck yeah, this is great. And they may not have a freaking clue what soup dumplings is, right? It's just one of those things where, it's there. And, when you get them too, it's not just like the little like tails, you know what I mean? It'll be like, not necessarily the whole shrimp, but big ones. It'll have some breading. It'll have just some sweetness in it, but it's not drowning in sauce the way sweet and sour shrimp is. When you brought up these wines, and you brought up the pear, and you brought up the fact that they're so dry, it made me think, well, I want something kind of Swedish to kind of cut. You know what I mean? To kind of slap against it.
Let me clarify one thing. Let me clarify one thing on the bone dry. So what I mean by bone dry is the actual chemistry of the wine. So if you tested for sugar, there would be very, very low residual sugar. That doesn't talk about impressions or perceptions. So if you're going to drink something, you might have the perception of you're not going to have the perception of bone dry, which, your palate is just completely cleansed. There's no real fruit on it.
Right.
Because of the richer fruit on this wine, you're going to have a perception of the richer fruit, not Fruit Loops, but pear, on its way to tropical, maybe kind of guava. Um, so your impression of the wine sipping it isn't necessarily bone dry. So that means bracingly dry. Yeah,
Okay,
so let's change it.
I'm sticking with my guns though, man. As soon as you said guava, now I'm thinking about Trader Vic's Mai Tais, that slippery shrimp. I'm sticking with it. Still gonna have a little bit of bread and a little bit of sweetness. I have other ideas, but I think it might work for number 2. Refresh me on what wine number 2 is.
Wine number 2 is the Rueda. So this is in the, call it a high desert. I don't know if it's technically classified as a desert. I call it a desert because it's low rainfall. The vines grow really close to the ground. There's a huge temperature swing between day and night that allows for the acidity to be retained. But you get richer fruit from the sunshine. You get the herbaceousness from the nature of the grape, and then you have that acidity that also brightens everything on the finish. This is, it's not oceanside. So you can pair this. This can go into your chicken.
Maybe some
dishes.
livestock. Yeah, maybe some farmy.
You start into the farm animals.
This is what I'm thinking. Ready? And this is more about the sauce. I'm thinking.
Yes.
And you got to do a good job with it. But I want pork chops with an applesauce.
Yeah.
And that's spiced and spiked, almost like a sweet fruit chutney.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was thinking about. I was like, I bet, like. It's interesting with some white wines because you're starting to be like, maybe you don't have to just have the lightest food or seafood or whatever. But I thought about, you kept bringing up pear. I started thinking about like basically that fruit in a savory setting.
Yep.
And I think if not it's kind of funny because there's bad, just garbage applesauce. But if you cook down apples, you know what I mean?
No, like you said, chutney style, like
touch of cinnamon, like just the subtleties of clove, of basically pumpkin pie spice. Just a little bit in there. Cook down apples on a pork chop with that wine, I think could be pretty interesting. This is a challenge because I'm using essentially my imagination. I should taste this.
Yes.
If I could taste it, I could be like, here we go. So this is kind of fun. It might be interesting to revisit this and go, did it taste like I thought it would, know? But I will tell you, and I almost want to back up to that last one where I said the slippery shrimp. You kind of got me into the whole, seafood. You know what I was thinking about? Weird. I want to get weird with my tasting, right? With my pairing, right? So with that first one, the Albariño, the Valmont, you said bone dry, not a lot of sugar in it. You know what I have? It's so weird. A McDonald's apple pie with charred Indian chutney. Swear to God. Think about that.
I like
Think about that. You're just, it's an apple pie. It's kind of like whatever. But then you have like the chutney in there. And I mean, I like spicy, sour mango chutney. Not that sweet garbage. But in this case, I would have it with that just to see what that, because it's about the wine. Yeah. It's not like I'm really desperate to eat this apple pie. It's about what can I put in here to change my Starbucks coffee. No, what the wine would be. It's, and that actually leads me to my third choice. My third choice for that last crazy heavy wine. Now, I have to tell you, I think I have come across a wine like this before. It looks very familiar. And, I have, and then I love when you do find those whites that are older or whatever, because it means there's more to it. So there's more oomph. Let's just get that out the way. If you've got a date like that, there's going to be more oomph. You ready? So this is a dish that I think is just bizarre. It's kind of weird. Like, people love it, but at the same time, I kind of question it. But I feel like with this wine, you just got to be careful. You don't want to have anything super. That wine can overwhelm so many foods. Like you brought up charcuterie, like cheese, salami, kaboom, kaboom. You know what I mean? Like you're 6 inches from a heavyweight boxer. Like oh, you know what I mean? You feel those jabs. Ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Biscuits and gravy.
Holy shit!
Why not?
Biscuits and gravy is a weird dish. Unless you have a really, really, really flavorful sausage, which at best technically is still just going to be sage because it's a country sausage.
I'm not shitting you, Ollie. I was on the phone this morning with a guy, and he was trying to pitch me on biscuits and gravy. I can't believe you said that because he was like, dude, have you ever been to Virginia? Like, you got to get biscuits and gravy. And so, like, you saying that, so I have to hear more.
It's just a bizarre dish where it's like, it's tasty and it's comforting, but it's overwhelming. It's so filling. And like the flavor, there's just not a lot of complexity to it.
I think he was joking about it being bread like in the gravy, and then you pour the gravy on the bread.
It's bread and bread sauce. Gravy is bread sauce. It's just like for reals. But I also think about this, all of this is about, honestly, not about enjoying the food first and foremost. It's about enjoying this wine, like seeing how these flavors, how this wine can be something. And it's interesting with this last one because it sounds like it's one of those things where this puppy can stand on its own.
On its own.
So that's why I'm like, let's have some like biscuits and gravy where it's like I don't care. You know what I mean? Biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
But it's something that's rich. It's gonna like kind of swallow up your mouth. It should cease whatever the wine is, and just to kind of go back and hit it. The other thing I thought about, and I just think, and part of it is like I'm making a case for like this is kind of bland. You know what I mean? Like this isn't like some dynamic, crazy flavor. I thought about a basic. I mean, it could be. You could argue it's fancy. It doesn't matter. It could be out the freezer or whatever. Chicken pot pie. And I even thought about Marie Callender's frozen chicken pot pie from the freezer, cooked in the oven. Because I almost feel like you just want the idea of this super awesome, powerful wine that would frankly blow away so many dishes at the restaurant that it would be at. You know what I mean? You have to be very careful about using it. I feel like at a restaurant that would have that. Maybe a Spanish restaurant will figure this out. But I just think like, hey, I want to try this wine with these foods. I'm not worried about this food. You know what I mean? It's just there. But it's just something to kind of go, boom. You know what I mean? This is me like kind of like washing it away. Going back for more. So yeah, chicken pot pie, biscuits and gravy.
I know roasted chicken's probably not really cool in the culinary world, lately.
Oh, I think it's one of the greatest.
It's still one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
You're ripping into the roasted chicken. You're pulling out the 2 oysters. And if it's made correctly, it's juicy. That Lopez de Heredia and a roasted chicken would be perfect.
So the last one, roast chicken.
Yeah, and you're sitting there, and your hands are greasy, and your glass is about to fall out of your hand. You're sipping on this just unbelievably complex, beautiful wine. There's going to be a lot of symmetry going on between those two things. You're going to elevate everything.
All right, now that you said that, there was a random restaurant that did this, and it's kind of weird. LA is known for dips. You've got Philippe's, whatever you want to call it. And what's kind of funny about that place, for what it's worth, is it's this celebrated institution. It's not the world's greatest dip. Like, I'm not saying, like, I can find 50 places that do a better dip than that, but it's not exactly, like, super flavorful. But one of the things they're smart about is it doesn't have to be roast beef. In fact, roast beef's kind of... I like the lamb.
The lamb.
Their beef's not very flavorful. That's a whole other scenario. But there was another restaurant that did a roasted chicken dip. Like, baguette, roasted chicken, like, cut thin, dipped in the au jus.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what I have with that one.
Yeah.
I would want to have a chicken, roasted chicken dip with au jus and that wine.
Yeah.
Just like schmaltz, man. Let's do that. Or potatoes cooked in what is it, like duck fat fries, maybe with aioli. But again,
Poinstar was big on those duck fat fries.
I want that wine to just be, it's like just, this is the thing. So, okay, you have two options here. You can have duck fat fries or the Marie Callender's frozen chicken pot pie. Either way, I think you're going to put that wine on a pedestal. Just, you hear me out. I will send you that frozen chicken pot pie, and I want you to try it.
All right.
If you don't want to, just have the duck fat fries on standby.
Let me bring up one other restaurant that you guys may or may not know about. The whole Chinese idea with the first wine, the Albariño, got my mind going. There is a restaurant downtown LA in a basement. It's called Peking Tavern. It's two Beijing architects that I think they were probably transferred. They work in LA. They're from Beijing. The story is they missed Beijing food, so they opened a restaurant in this basement underneath. It's kind of by Tironi downtown. It's in the basement. They have a noodle guy that just makes noodles every day. Then there's a lot of spice in the food, so that Albariño will stand up to that spice, fruit and spice. They also have a dumpling lady. She just makes dumplings all day long. The food at this place is unbelievable.
Really?
It's so good.
I never made it there. I lived walking distance to it. And I can tell you right now, Austin is not Los Angeles when it comes to Asian food. And like when you said Beijing, I was, as I think about not being in LA, and you realize, it's just wild. And then to think about, and here I am talking about chicken pot pies from Marie Callender's.
Hey, let me submit a Southern California option to this. Once you spoke about all those wines, I thought of the fish taco, like the battered fish taco,
of course,
with the cabbage. They got a little white sauce they put on it. There's the pico de gallo and the all sorts of salsas, which I think would tie in with the Spanish sort of thing. Sort of a what do you call it? They call Southern California sometimes there's a Riviera, the Mexican Riviera sort of vibes that seep into Southern California.
You know what? Everything you said, when I think about that Baja fish taco, so like that thick beer batter, you know what I mean? Like the slaw. Honestly, it's either crema, sometimes it's freaking mayo and crema, right? I think pico de gallo for sure. I almost feel like almost salsa light, or if it's just pico and freaking mayo and that fried fish,
tomatoes in there somehow.
Yeah.
Especially the Rueda. The Rueda with those fish tacos.
Oh, the Rueda. That's what you're saying. The middle
go in there. Yep.
The desert.
Yeah. I mean, the Albariño would pair nice too, but you can.
I was thinking the Albariño, but I will say this: the Albariño, the Valmont, it reminds me of the Harry Potter, the villain, I think. When you did talk about the Rueda, one way to remember that one for people like me who were like, wait, what was that? He said hot days, cold nights. Sounds like a racy dating show on Netflix when he kept bringing that up. Hot days, cool nights. Yeah, I just kind of pictured like really, really good-looking people,
F-Boy Island,
just all having sex with each other in different times, and you're like, well, you basically are all with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, on the real quick on the fish taco thing, are you guys best fish taco and Ensenada fans?
The one in Los Feliz?
Yeah, the little shack.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't go there often enough. I mean, I always liked Mariscos, Jaliscos too. In the end of the day, I never got them as much as I should have.
Right.
You know?
I've been staying in the OC part of Southern California, and I mean, everyone's all about fish tacos. Like, there's a huge well, in LA too. I mean, LA is basically 50% Latin at this point. So to not mention Mexican food, I mean, it's the best. I love it. And so it's just it's all around. So when I hear that white wine, everyone thinks to pair like a cold, Corona or a cold beer with the fish taco, but I think the white wine chilled is like,
that's a real. You know what? You're absolutely. You know what? You nailed it. I think it's those stupid Corona ads. Those Corona ads make Corona taste way better than it is.
Hey,
and it's not bad.
On that
but
note,
it ain't
pork and chili verde. One of my favorite dishes in LA. That Rueda would go. I think Ali mentioned pork with a apple sauce.
Al pastor?
The spice and the pork and chili verde with that wine. Yeah.
You know what? Al pastor pork chop. That's what I'm like. For some reason, I picture like sinking my teeth into a protein. It's funny. One thing with the taco is a wine, you sip, right? Beer you drink, you sip, but you're kind of drinking it faster. It's getting warm. It's getting less busy.
It's cold.
Tacos you eat fast. I picture with wine a fork and knife and just digging into something and sawing it and having that bite and, grabbing that last chunk of that chop, dragging it through that sauce. You know what I mean? Like something that will pace well with where that glass is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I plan on drinking it out of a fishbowl. So there's that. So I'm gonna have to
Al pastor. Maybe Taco Tuesday is big, right? Maybe so on Taco Tuesday, maybe I get the 2 fish and the 2 pork to have with the white wine, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. You just get more tacos. Get more. That's the
buy more tacos.
Just get more.
I used to see. I'm sorry to interrupt. I used to see these wines on wine lists a lot more. I used to see Spanish wines somewhere in the mix. I don't necessarily see Spanish wines or Albariño, Rueda, all the other wines on that mini wine list, but should be on a bottle list at a restaurant that you're going in. Grab that, some tacos, some whatever.
One thing too, before we wrap it out, you mentioned that first bottle, the Albariño, roughly around in the $15 mark. What about the Rueda and then the last wine?
Let me just look this up because I honestly don't remember.
And Steve, like you mentioned, I mean, I don't think we really got to all the Spanish wines, so maybe we could do a part 2 on this and dig deeper into it in future ones.
Yeah, why not? We'll do it in a couple weeks. Let's come back to Spain and we can start talking. It's going to get even colder here in November. We can start talking about the range of Spanish reds that are out there is amazing.
Yeah.
I always felt like across the board, Spain carries with it a lot of value.
Yes.
Yes. Like, do you all remember straight up back in the day, like you would go to Trader Joe's and you get that Rioja, and that was like good wine. Like it was good. It was good, and it was like not inexpensive at all. Like
that was the new table wine, right? It was like that would be your table wine instead of the classic Italian or whatever.
So I have prices for you. The Inicia, the Bodegas Ordonez Verdejo from Rueda, $15. Speaking of value, and then.
Well, before you reveal it, Crosby, you know this is going to be expensive, right? So, shall we make a wager? You know what I mean? I'm going to make a wager here. I will pay you on Venmo. I was like, how am I going to pay you back? Oh, who cares? You have to be Venmo this thing. What do you think this wine's going to cost?
$47.
Whoa. I'm going to say, 32. Now I just went prices right. Now I just went for a calculation. Yeah.
So average price on Wine Searcher was $68. I'm gonna say in my memory, I think I spent 57. Could have been 59.
57 sounds a lot like 47, so I like 57.
Yeah. Plus, Price is Right rules. You win.
Out of here.
Yeah, you were close.
Dang, man. Jeez. Wow. All right. Good to know. You know what? Not sure. Now that I know it was a $60 bottle of wine, not sure if I'd want to get the old Marie Callender's frozen chicken. You know, he wasn't too enthused. Now he's why.
Yeah, you need a pot.
I didn't want to spoil that either, so that's why I didn't say anything about the price. I wanted you to
that changes everything. Yeah, I mean, and now I feel like, you know what? I'll say this. I'm pretty sure you can. We were talking about that wine, and you talked about a great roast chicken. Which, by the way, frankly, if people have asked me this in the past, like, you know, what would be your last meal? Like, perfect, whatever. Swear to God, roast chicken. I stumbled upon a roast chicken recipe. I posted it last year during quarantine cooking times, and I've been cooking it for probably since like 2005, 2006. You know, just I found the recipe just online, ancient internet days. Cast iron pan, whole chicken. You can truss it. You don't have to truss it. Kind of doesn't matter really. It's just for looks, in my opinion. Bottom of the pan, carrots, onion, celery, potatoes surrounding. Chicken goes on top. Herbs, olive oil, salt, pepper. I pop that sucker in the oven. I used to do a whole thing where it's like cook it at 400 degrees for the first 20 minutes, then drop it down to 350. I have a probe thermometer. Pull that chicken when the thigh hits 165. Yada yada yada. But basically, now I just roasted at 350. It's fine. Pull the chicken out. You pull the potatoes out. You take all the juices from the pan, the carrots, onion, celery. You put it in a strainer. You pour white wine. I'm trying to think how I did this.
To make some jus?
Oh, no, yes. You basically pour wine. You strain the vegetables. You pour the juices back into the pan with some wine, and you just reduce it. And it's like freaking. It's basically like if you don't do the wine, it's like good. When you do the wine, it's like I feel like it's like I'm at the restaurant. You know what I mean? That's like just that extra notch. That's like restaurant cooking. So
the average person might not know to do that sort of thing where you're extracting juice and pouring things back into dishes. Like that's such a move. That is such a great move that the average home cooker could learn is that sort of thing. And then, like you said, adding a acidic or a wine element, orange juice, whatever juice or wine. Yeah, that's really a cool tip for the average home chef, home sommelier.
And frankly, one of the best meals I think you could ever eat. And Steve is right. The best way to eat it too, honestly, there's a very small window of perfection from when you break the chicken down to plating it. Sometimes you can let the meat rest, but once you cut into it, and I still let the whole chicken rest, but I swear to God, the best bites are on the cutting.
Oh, yeah. The oil and the water is still there.
40% of the flavors on the cutting board. Yeah. Don't ask me, you know what I mean?
Hey, before we go, I want to put some perspective on that price. I know that price is a little high for the Lopez de Heredia.
It's an old wine.
So,
it's an old wine.
Yeah, it's an old wine. That was in barrel for 6 years, then rested at the winery, and then released. Let's call it 10 just for ease. I think it actually was released even later. That takes a lot of effort and time. And so, in perspective, that Chablis that I mentioned earlier, the Premier Cru Louis Michel, this is around $40 a bottle. The Grand Cru of this would be more like 75 or 80. If we go to a more geeky, sought after Chablis. I'm a big Chablis fan. Davicet. This is the Premier Cru. This is $140, $150 a bottle. If you're talking about, if you go down into the Côte d'Or into Burgundy for a Meursault, a top producer of Meursault, small production. Guess, just guess what that might cost.
What was the last price?
One arm?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be around $750 a bottle. For one of the top Meursault producers, yes. So in perspective,
what do you eat with a $750 bottle of wine?
Well, I would age it, and then I would just drink it on its own.
Baby seals.
Yeah, and cheese. Everything. I could sit around and eat cheese plates every single day. Every day. Stinkier the better.
Yeah, he's right. Baby seals. Yeah, he literally.
You're just a violent person if you're buying a $750 bottle of wine.
So, I mean, put that in perspective. This is only $55. This is, this is a very special
He did
wine.
a really good job. He did an excellent job because I think one of the interesting things is you kind of when I think about that roast chicken that I love to make, that's such an amazing dish. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'll just get a bottle of white wine. Like you don't think about a heavy hitter, expensive bottle of white. Red, sure. White, not as much. So that, you know what? It's well, you know what? As the temp changes, as the nip gets in the air, I might put that wine on my Thanksgiving list. What do you think about them apples?
I was going to bring that up, but we're a little too far out from Thanksgiving, so I thought we could mention it in the Thanksgiving.
That's good to know.
Wait until we get into the Spanish Reds. I mean, there's just a whole unknown world to most people.
So let's wrap it up for today, you guys. This has been Steve, you bring so much to the table. It's unbelievable. I feel like I need to research this entire episode that I just experienced. And and we'll come up with our food challenges for the week that we start promoting this and stuff. I think we have some roasted chicken to eat, maybe a battered fish taco. And then again,
pot pie.
Yeah, then again,
pot pie.
I don't think you even touched upon all of the wines of Spain. So hopefully we can do another Spanish wine episode some point down the line.
Yeah.
Straight up, white wine and Taco Tuesday. I'm gonna make that happen. That's an easy.
Yeah.
So, thank you guys. Any finishing words, Steve? Ali?
No. I like this. I'm going to go with the frozen pot pie as my challenge. I mean, I don't think I've had a frozen pot pie since I was a child.
Is there Marie Callender in Colorado or no?
Well, I would think frozen Marie Callender's are
ship it
in every grocery store on the planet.
Possibly,
right?
I don't know about that brand, but that's what we'll investigate when it comes to it.
Yeah. But that's what I will do. I will not do, an off-brand of frozen chicken pot pie. I'm only doing Marie Callender.
He's not going to open that wine with that. So I just put a pin in it. The whole point, if you just are like, hey, I went and ate some garbage frozen food, that's not a challenge. That's just a waste of your time. And it's just going to be, he's just going to hit me with hate later of like, why did I do this to myself?
I'll have it with that rule.
I didn't know how much that price was, but I would just add to this. Something along the lines of the biscuit and gravy and stuff. Because, I was thinking about a white wine and a white wine that would pair with something, like kind of a richer food, a richer white wine with richer food. You live in Denver. I feel like in the food world, and this is, Denver's, I think, is a restaurant scene city, kind of a newer. But people say, and it's not just, maybe it's because of the Denver omelet, who knows, but it's a breakfast town. So I would say, it'd be very interesting for you to find a good brunch spot.
Okay.
Right? Maybe there's a good biscuits and gravy joint, but I would find like a good. That's my March order for you.
Okay.
White wine breakfast. Steve Greer's gonna make that happen. White wine with white wine, not mimosas, not Bloody Mary. White wine with a brunch. I don't know. I'm thinking, yeah, maybe Eggs Benedict. I mean, that seems like a fair, holidays, wine, sure. But that's my challenge to you.
I'll do it.
Denver's a big breakfast town. Find me a brunch and the white wine that should go with it, since we're kind of in the white wine. Sure, Spanish, whatever you want. The world's your oyster.
All right.
It'll be winter when we do this too, so it'll be extra, greasy. Love it.
I see Frosty on the Pumpkin from here.
All right, guys, let's tap out for today's episode. I'll check in with you guys in a week. It was so fun to get back with you guys, and I wish the Falcon was with us, but it's not. But we have the white wine and we have all the food pairings, and so let's sign off, you guys. Episode 1 of season 2. Eat this, drink that.
See you guys.
Live long and prosper.